Hello, and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I'm your host, Chris Deluca. This is Boom Broadcasting's one, first, and only baseball-centric podcast, and we are once again back here in the middle of August after missing a week here. We have had the trade deadline pass. There's been a lot of deals made, many deals. Some of the it was one of the more active trade deadlines I think that we've seen here in recent years. While there weren't a bunch of insane blockbuster moves, like Max Scherzer or Trey Turner to the Dodgers type blockbusters, there were some decent moves that we're going to be going and talking about here. And we have a little bit of extra news as well, because like I said, we did miss this week here. And of course, we'll have our power rankings as well. And we'll just kind of be talking about, teams that I'm kind of big on, not big on, as we're going here, moving closer and closer into the final full month of the season and the playoffs. So that being said, though, we have a big piece of news here. The Milwaukee Brewers are red hot. Milwaukee Brewers win 11 straight for the second time this year here in 2025, and they become the first team since the 2015 Blue Jays, which were a crazy team that I definitely would have loved to see make the World Series, to do so. They're the first team since the 2019 Astros to win 10 plus, so that's all in twice in one season. So, the Brewers are the team to beat in the National League, if you ask me, because they're doing this against good teams. Plus, the Dodgers are sliding. The Phillies are not as strong as we thought they would be this year. They're still strong, don't get me wrong. So the Dodgers, of course, even with, the injuries, even with the pitching woes, they're still strong. But the Brewers being able to do this, especially with their performance against the Dodgers in potential National League National League Championship preview, really impressive. Even with their ace on the IL, even with the Miz on, WWE guys, we'll call them that just because, we have a lot of WWE content here. Even with the Miz on the IR, they continue to find ways with Freddie Peralta, with Prisoner, Jose Quintana, and Chad Patrick, and not a lot of household names. And back in the day, we were always say, the Rays are going to Ray. Well, now we're saying the Brewers are going to Brewer. Pat Murphy, again, one of my favorite managers, probably tied for my favorite manager overall in the league, tied with Stephen Vogt, continues just to get it done. Pat Murphy continues to get it done. And, the big reason that I'm big on the Milwaukee Brewers is that they're doing it with a good bullpen. All their bullpen pieces have a positive WAR, or main bullpen guys have a positive WAR, which says a lot because it's not something that other teams like the Mets, Phillies, and Dodgers, or even Padres can speak of, even with the Padres getting one of the best relief pitchers in Major League Baseball currently, as the Padres acquired Mason Miller and J.P. Sears in exchange for DeFreeze, Brandon Nett, Henry Baez, and Arnold Nunez. But DeFreeze is the big piece out of this one here for the A's, obviously getting one of the biggest, superstar prospects in the Padres system. And, AJ Preller, he's just wanting to wheel and deal here. I mean, the big thing with it is the Padres were so close last year. The Padres were really the only team that really came close to beating the Dodgers last year. And the Dodgers were not in their strongest year. And AJ Preller, instead of going and deciding to, maybe actually have a future here, build a future, they double down and they go for the most electric closer, one of the most electric closers in Major League Baseball, and Mason Miller. And then they go, of course, for a great back end guy who I'm personally big on. I've been big on since he was in the Yankees organization and came over as a part of the Frankie Montas deal to Oakland. J.P. Sears. I think that he is really good pinpoint accuracy. He's going to make a great back end guy or a bullpen guy. We'll see as the time goes on how Bob Melvin decides to utilize him. So Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, for a massive prospect, though. These Padres, they do not see a long-term future. They're here to win now, and I respect it. They have Tatis on a long-term deal. They have they have Manny Machado on a long-term deal, and they're doubling down. And I respect that. AJ Preller, it's the thing I respect about that organization is this is your opportunity now, even with a behemoth of a team in front of you. Everyone around you is kind of falling apart. I mean, if you're really looking at the Giants completely sold, and we're going to be talking about that briefly here as we get into the show. Buster Posey decided to sell this year, which is fine. I think that's okay with considering everyone around you. Arizona as well, sold. We're going to be into that here in 1 second as well. And the Rockies. But Mets Phillies, good, not amazing, not what we completely thought. National League's weaker than we thought. San Diego was going to do it. This is a year to do it. AJ Preller, tip of the cap to you for doubling down. But speaking of the Diamondbacks selling off here, Diamondbacks sell off Eugenio Suárez. Diamondbacks continuing their sell-off fest here, with Eugenio Suárez going back to the Mariners. So he's making his return to Seattle. Obviously, Seattle in the driver's seat right now. They're the team to beat the American League currently. We'll see how that continues. But good move. He's having a good year. He seems to fit in well in Seattle. Next, Shane Bieber, the 2020 Cy Young Award winner, who hasn't played this year yet and hasn't played in a full season since 2022. He's on his way north of the border to Toronto in exchange for Cal Stevenson. So Toronto, who's really hot as well. Seattle, Toronto, two really not necessarily surprise teams. Teams with good players, just not exactly the number one big dogs we were going to be thinking of. We were thinking of teams like the Yankees, the Rangers at the beginning of the year, but now those are the two teams in the American League we really like. 2020 Cy Young Award winner going north of the border. We'll see if he plays this year, so that'd be really good for them if he does. Minnesota completely sold off, as we all know. Johan Duran traded to the Phillies for Mick Abel. I feel like he's an MLB The Show legend. I feel like he's one of those guys who's just been down there forever. Such a waste, I think, for the Twins. They could have got so much more for this electric closer. He's one of the best in the league. Dustin May to the Red Sox for James Tibbs III. I don't really hate this. Tibbs is the 5th ranked prospect in the Red Sox organization. I don't hate this at all. I think that getting, Dustin May was having a rough year this year anyway. I think a change of scenery would work well for him. Plus, with the pitching rotation getting a little bit healthier, it's sad to see. I really liked him, but I don't hate this move at all. The Mets are trying to bolster their bullpen here. Mets get Ryan Helsley for Jesus Baez, Nate Dome, and Frank Elsat. So the Mets getting Ryan Helsley, the Cardinals' former closer. The Pirates trade within their own division, and I had the opportunity to see this guy's second game back in Pittsburgh, just with a different team here. Ke'Bryan Hayes to the Cincinnati Reds for Taylor Rogers. Both Rogers brothers getting traded on the same day, by the way. Sammy Safaris as well. Part of that deal, I got to see Ke'Bryan Hayes in his second game back in Pittsburgh, just with different teams. So that was pretty cool. Pirates flip Taylor Rogers immediately to the Cubs, and Tyler Rogers, his brother, was traded to the Mets for Blade Tidwell, Jose Buto, and Drew Gilbert. Vet Steven Matz to the Red Sox, and Cardinals get Blaze Jordan, another guy you feel like has kind of been around for a while but probably hasn't. Jordan, 17th ranked prospect in the Red Sox system, and Steven Matz is a 3.2 ERA this year, so I don't hate that either. Red Sox trying to bolster that pitching as they're moving closer to trying to punch a ticket to October with Matz and Dustin May going to Fenway. Phillies get Harrison Bader from Minnesota, part of that Twins fire sale for Henry Mendez and Jeremy Villara. Being pronunciation today. But yeah, Harrison Bader, part of this Twins fire sale that we've seen here. So Yankees get David Bednar from the Pirates as well. David Bednar for the Yankees 8th and 14th ranked prospect, which I think is pretty funny considering Bednar has not been particularly great and so far this year and last year, and his beginning with New York as well, his first few appearances not going very well. So getting the 8th and the 14th prospect, not a bad deal for a setup man at best with them. Devin Williams has also struggled. James Outman to the Twins for Brock Stewart. So the Twins do get one thing. They get James Outman, who's a guy I still think can be really good. I think James Outman was kind of a victim of just having a really good outfield around him, So not getting a lot of opportunity. Texas Rangers get Merle Kelly. Merle Kelly for from the Arizona Diamondbacks for Cole Drake, who is the 5th ranked prospect in the Rangers system, as well as Mitch Brott, 9th ranked, and David Hegman, the 13th ranked. All in the Rangers organization, down the Diamondbacks organization. Again, Diamondbacks sort of selling, getting rid of Eugenio Suárez, and Merle Kelly here, keeping Zach Gallen, which I think was a good move. A lot of people are talking that if Kelly goes, Gallen goes, and vice versa, but that didn't end up happening. Both are in contract years, but Twins send Griffin Jacks to the Tampa Bay Rays for Taj Bradley. That was a really weird deal as well, considering Griffin Jacks. Apparently, there was a lot of drama with him requesting trade last year due to being brought in because he thought he was getting traded. Then they lowered his value by putting him in a really bad inherited run situation, something along the lines of that. He requested a trade. Griffin Jacks, really good reliever. He's on the way to Tampa. I think that's a good move for them. Carlos Correa is back on the Astros after a weird tenure in Minnesota. Part of that Twins fire sale, like I said. Correa hasn't been himself in Minnesota. I do get that, but considering you're getting one guy out of this deal too, and he's not even a top 10 ranked prospect in your farm system, they kind of just gave Correa away. And what makes it even worse for the Minnesota Twins, who are a relatively well-run organization, at least recently, is that they're still eating a large portion of Correa's contract. That's what makes it even worse, makes the situation even more dramatic. Twins also get rid of Ty France, sending him to Toronto for Alan Rodon and Kendry Rojas. The Reds acquire Miguel Andujar for Kenya Huggins. So Miguel Andujar, the veteran, former A and Yankee, heading to Cincinnati. Veteran as well, Charlie Morton. He gets traded to the Tigers here. Morton, 41, has a 5.20 ERA, and he's still hanging around though. So Charlie Morton, part of the Astros and Braves legend. Mike Yastrzemski, former Giant Mike Yastrzemski, is heading to Kansas City. So, that's another weird one. Mike Yastrzemski is one of those guys you kind of figured would be hanging around the same team for a long time, but no, indeed, he did not. He did not end up staying with the Giants. You look at a picture him with the Giants, but he's on the Royals here. And there are so many other deals, so many more to even get to, but these are the big ones that I wanted to just kind of briefly mention. In other news, Marcus Stroman was released by the New York Yankees after a rough start, 6.23 ERA, negative 0.4 WAR, and definitely I think someone will pick him up, but we will see here. Marcus Stroman, I think, can be really good. He's one of those guys who's capability to be really good going back to his time with Chicago, but of recent has struggled along with a lot of the Yankees pitching rotation, which, just to get on with them, like really, I really don't know what to make of them this year. It's not necessarily that they've been obscenely bad, but 64-56, you look at that record on the outside, 4-6 over the last 10, and you can't say that they're exactly terrible, but Boston and Toronto are in front of them here. I really don't see them being able to recover. I think that they're hanging on to that last wild card spot. There's a good chance that Cleveland could pass them. If Cleveland gets hot, New York misses the playoffs. And I'm going to say that right here. The pitch rotation has struggled. Obviously, Garrett Cole's been hurt. Marcus Stroman released. Just Clark Schmidt, Max Fried been okay, but still a weak rotation, a weak bullpen, and a couple struggling bats. Best guy they've had of recent, Stanton. Anthony Volpe, Anthony Volpe is leading the league in errors. This team cannot field at all. This team is a struggling rotation. And again, if a team out of the Central gets hot, I think New York misses the playoffs. I'm going to say that right here. Finally, Alex Wood retires after 12 seasons. He played for the Reds, Dodgers, Braves, A's, and Giants. So happy retirement to Alex Wood. And I really just want to touch on a couple teams that I'm really big on. I think that the Mariners did really good by getting Suárez at the deadline. That rotation is still really, really red hot. Mariners have been red hot. I also like what the Phillies did, not a crazy active deadline, but still addressing team needs. And that's the most important thing to do. I think obviously the biggest loser of the deadline is Minnesota Twins. They completely gave up. They saw themselves a few games back and they just completely folded. It's not even like a Baltimore level fold necessarily. I mean, 56-63, they are 12 games back, but they saw a team like Kansas City is disappointing. Cleveland started very disappointing. They've been hot of recent, 8-2 over the past 10. And Detroit, obviously the best teams in the American League. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Minnesota should have sold or should they have not? Baltimore, not really big on them either. Really, they got rid of Charlie Morton. They didn't really address or negate anything. They just kind of sat there. They're obviously well out of the picture. And then Tigers should have done a little bit more. I think they could have done a little more, and they didn't. Giants sold. Another team that's just like, well, you sold. And then finally the Dodgers as well, getting Alex Call. I didn't even mention that one. Not a huge active deadline. Do you need to have an active deadline? Maybe not necessarily. Losing Dustin May, getting rid of James Outman as well. More so just not a fire sale, obviously, but you maybe could have got some. I wouldn't have hated like a Harrison Bader or something like that. I think he could have done at least a little bit of something, but maybe even adding to the rotation because you lost Dustin May, going for like Merle Kelly in the contract year. So. With that being said, it's time for our power rankings here. And at number 5, I have the Toronto Blue Jays, one of the teams to beat in the American League. Boston Red Sox, another AL East team. Those two teams are going to be fighting over it at the end of the year. I think it's going to come down to the wire in the AL East, especially with New York sliding to the level that they are. Philadelphia Phillies staying good, staying really, really good, managing to put win streaks together. Seattle Mariners taking up the number 2 spot. And then at number one, the team that has won 11 in a row twice this year, led by Pat Murphy. Give me the Milwaukee Brewers, who when they get fully healthy, I think are going to get even better. I'm going to double down on that. And then for our series of the week, I have 2 right here. Padres at Dodgers, obviously a crucial one in the National League West matchup here. Currently tied 68-52. Dodgers have been struggling here, 4-10 over the last, or 4-6 rather, over the last 10. Padres 7-3 over the last 10. It is a scary looking division right now for the Dodgers. This is crucial. This is at one of the most important times of the year. If you can take 3 out of 4, if you can take even split it still, you can create some separation. Next, I have the Astros and Tigers. I have the Astros at the Tigers here, another important one. Tigers trying to continue being the best team in baseball, being 1 game behind Toronto for the best team in the American League. Detroit's kind of been lukewarm since the All-Star break, and then Houston tied with the Seattle Mariners at 67-53. Seattle been red hot, 9-1 over the past 10. Houston also been lukewarm since the All-Star break. So crucial series for both these teams. Just classic interleague or non-interleague rather matchups here. Obviously a big division matchup and a big interdivision matchup here coming up this week. Astros, Tigers. I mean, who would have thought that was going to be one of the more crucial series here if you would have said that back in the month of May, back in the month of April. So with that being said, we're going to do our trivia question, and then we will get out of here for the week on a relatively shorter episode despite missing the week. So last year, who is the only BBWAA Hall of Fame inductee to be 100%, be completely unanimous? So just basically that association is the one that just votes on players who retire, wait the 6 years, then get inducted. That is Mariano Rivera, former lifetime Yankee, last man to wear 42, by the way, Mariano Rivera. So what year were the Angels founded is going to be this year. What year were the Angels founded? And a bonus question, if you can name the first ballpark that they played at, the ballpark they played at before the famous Big A, because it shares a name with the current one, by the way. But we'll get to that next week here on Dugout Debrief. I want to thank you for tuning in here this week. Once again, as always, make sure to tune into the other great content here on Boom Broadcasting. We have football season starting up. The Gridiron Address is returning. Out of Pocket came back as well. Michael Davis doing everything that he loves to do here, talking football, talking about streaming services, a big deal here with that when it comes to football, and WWE and everything above. Once again, thank you for tuning in to Dugout Debrief. Have a great week.